Hi, hello, it's me, Julian Greystoke, and I'm a little bit late to the party, but not that bad, right? It feels weird to film these before the year is over, so as a result, I always end up a little bit late. But I know I, for one, love all the best and worst of the year videos that come out from booktubers right around this time, and I always like to do sort of a best and worst video of my own. And this time I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm stealing an idea from Book Community. If you don't watch her channel, I don't know why. Like, if you like my channel, you'll like her channel too. She's got all the hot goss about what is going on in the bookish world, so check out her channel. But anyway, she did kind of a thing which was like a best and worst sort of award ceremony style. So I've got a bunch of categories here, and this whole thing is a giant mess, and we'll see if I can read it and figure out what I even meant. Let's go. I tried not to repeat myself too much in these categories, but I may a little bit. I actually had a pretty slow reading year. I had a lot of reading slumps over 2022. I don't know why, but like it seemed like every single book I read put me into a fresh reading slump. I did my best. I had to get rid of some of the categories I wanted because I just didn't read enough books to fill those categories. Like, I wanted to have best and worst ace rep, but I really didn't get much ace rep in any of my books this year, so here's hoping that I have a better reading year this year. First of all, in no particular order, best and worst female lead. In the best slot, we have Ellery from Small Favors, which is a book that I finished somewhat recently and I have a review of. I really related to Ellery a lot. She is the eldest sister of a somewhat large family, not as large as mine, but she really takes a lot of responsibility for her family and is a really kind of has a caregiver kind of nature, and I related very strongly to that. She likes animals, she loves her family, she's very determined to make sure that everyone is taken care of, and so Ellery is definitely most relatable character for me, and also my best female lead of the year. Sorry if you hear any noises in the background, that's Adam. I try to film while he's working, but he still has to come out and do things like use the bathroom, so there may be noises. Anyway, who wins the worst female lead? And that would be Claire from Dead Silence. This woman, I hated her. I hated the way that she portrayed mental illness. I wanted to smack her most of the time. She had one of my least favorite tropes, which is like guilt as a motivator. Like, that's a personal preference. I hate guilt as a motivator. It makes me so upset. So yes, I do have a full review of that book as well if you want to check that out, but that lead character was not for me. Next, we have best and worst male lead characters. The best spot goes to Dante from the book Kill the Father. He was kind of a Sherlock Holmes archetype, and I love the way that he bounced off of the female lead of that story. I have a review for this as well, and I really enjoyed their dynamic together, so I think Dante definitely wins this category. Also, he was mentally ill, and his mental illness affected him a lot and was not a superpower, so I really enjoyed that too. And in the worst category, we have Erin from Come With Me, a book that I barely remember. I don't even know if I made a review of it, that's how little I remember. I think it was a thriller, kind of done and made a lot of really terrible decisions, and so he's not winning any best character awards this year. Next, we have best supporting character, and in the best spot we have Leland. I don't know how to pronounce the name, it's been a while since I read the book, from Beast Player. And this character is an animal, which is not surprising at all for me. In the book Beast Player, there are these giant creatures, these royal beasts that are kind of like wolves but with wings and also the size of horses, and how can I not love that? Like, give me that animal, please. The worst slot for supporting character goes to the entire crew from Dead Silence. Once again, I'm trying not to repeat too much, but Dead Silence, it's just really disappointed me, and the whole crew were just cardboard cutouts, stale tropes of characters that the author never bothered to advance past their tropiness. Next, best and worst romance. This one was tough because I'm just not really that into romance, so it's usually my least favorite part of whatever book I'm reading. But the best, in my opinion, was the romance in Blood Like Magic. A book that I quite enjoyed this year, and proof to me that young adult books can be good and enjoyable by adults, so you can fight me. I will stand this book forever, and the romance was cute. It was cute. It was kind of a hate to love, but a very tame hate to love, not like a stupid, abusive, he's a mass murderer who kicks puppies and she can change him. It wasn't that. It was just a kind of a two very different worlds kind of hate to love situation, and it was very cute. But the loser in the romance category goes to A Night and Its Moon. Because what was that? On the back of the book, we were promised that this was going to be an epic lesbian romance, and instead, the two female leads barely thought about each other. Well, okay, one of them was simping after the other one, while that other one was running around the world doing whatever, as though she had no cares in the world whatsoever for her former friend who's now enslaved and human trafficked and forced into sex work. So, if you want to see me thoroughly dissect that book, check out my reading of A Night and Its Moon. Next category, we have Best and Worst Found Family. Best Found Family goes to Warrior of the Wild. Which is a little book that didn't make a huge impression on me, but I really liked the way that the characters interacted. The main character gets banished from her village and ends up with these two guys who were also banished, and they just have to figure out how to work together and how to coexist and how to get unbanished, and they honestly just sort of develop a really sweet relationship between the three of them. And even though one of them does end up being a romantic interest, there's still a lot of that sweet found family element there. So even though the book itself was pretty forgettable, I liked the character interactions. And then the worst found family goes to... So I had to re-record this because the book that I chose, I realized I accidentally picked a book from the very tail end of 2021, but I have a better answer anyway than that one, and it's so obvious. The obvious answer is The Cyborg Tinkerer. Where we kept being assured over and over again that all the characters were totally making themselves a found family, even though we never actually saw it on the page. You can't just say we're a found family without any proof in your book. It just doesn't work like that. All right, let's talk about craft overall. What book had the best craft and writing and skill, and what had the worst? For best craft, I gave this one to Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I don't actually like many V.E. Schwab's books, and this one was also kind of disappointing. But I like her writing style. I keep trying and trying to read V.E. Schwab because every time I am initially drawn into her story by her style just speaks to me. I'm like, yes, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the Schwab book that I love. And then, of course, I end up being disappointed by the plot and the characters because those are two things that I feel that she is not very good at, or at least that aren't for me. But I love her style, so I'm giving it to Gallant. However, worst writing overall, and the competition is fierce this year thanks to my read-alongs, but I am giving it to Lightlark. I have a few chapters left to read of Lightlark, but I think I have seen enough, and I am counting it as a 2022 read, even though I'm getting a little bit into 2023. I have seen enough. Atrocious. It reads like an inexperienced teenager wrote it, and then no one edited it at all. Sorry, not sorry. Let's talk best and worst horror that I read this year. I love reading horror books. Again, I wish I had read more this year, but it's just because it was such a slow reading year. Best goes to Small Favors, which could be considered like not quite a horror, but I think it is. There were definitely a lot of horror elements. It's just extremely slow burn. Eventually you get to some really horrific, especially like body horror stuff, and it's like, whoa. But it takes you a while to get there. Either way, I really enjoyed that book, and it got real dark, so I'm counting it as horror. Worst goes to Dead Silence again. I know I was gonna try not to repeat myself, but this one was just a letdown in a lot of ways. I was really excited to read this one. It sounded so enticing, and then I was like, oh, I hate this. So unfortunately, it is filling a lot of categories for me. Next up, best and worst fantasy of the year. Best slot goes to Blood Like Magic, which we've already talked about a little bit with Best Female Lead. I really liked this, and I don't even really like urban fantasy, which is what this I think falls under. So it was like set in the future, actually. It's sort of future fantasy, and I really, really liked it, and I think it is a testament to what young adults can be. And in the worst category, we have Magic Steeped in Poison, which was a giant, enormous letdown. It sounded so promising, the cover was beautiful, the synopsis drew me right in, and it was using themes that I was using in one of my own books, so I'm like, oh, I want to see how another author does it, and then it was just so bad. Next up, along with fantasy, I love a good thriller. So what were my best and worst thrillers of the year? Let's go. My best was Rock, Paper, Scissors, which wasn't amazing. Like, I'm not gonna say that it was like the best book of the year or anything, but it kept me entertained and I enjoyed my time with it. And the worst was The Wives. I have a video about that. A patron, I think, made me read that. You're welcome. So you can go check that out, but that one was just hot garbage, in my opinion. A steaming pile of poo. All of the worst tropes being used, and I just, no thank you. And finally, I was gonna do best and worst nonfiction, but I only read one nonfiction this year, so that doesn't work. But finally, we had my favorite and least favorite books overall of all of 2022. What are they? Drum roll, please. My best book of 2022, the book I enjoyed the most, was Blood Like Magic. I know I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, I didn't read as much this year, but I really loved Blood Like Magic. Please go check it out. As a queer person, I loved it. It's got some horror elements to the magic, even though it isn't a horror book, that I really loved. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the relationships, even the side characters felt like people instead of just archetypes, and it made me so happy. And I do have the second one already on my Audible. I just need to be in the mood to listen to it. I want to be in the right mood to listen to it and not just be like forcing myself to, because I'm a mood reader. So I want to have the best possible experience with book 2 because I enjoyed book 1 so much. And finally, the one you've been waiting for, what am I calling my worst read of 2022? Well, everyone, that spot is going to... So this is a huge last-minute upset. I was originally going to give it to The Cyborg Tinkerer, but that was before I read the final several chapters of Lightlark. Yes, that's right. Lightlark is my worst book of the year. The final chapters just cemented it for me. There was nothing worse that I read this year. While this book was relatively free of typographical errors, it made every possible storytelling mistake that I feel you could make. Flat characters, a nonsensical plot, magic system that was like beyond a soft magic system and just into a magic system that was needlessly confusing. I don't think the author spared one moment of thought for any depth to this book whatsoever. It's just a series of tropes strung together with bad chapter titles. This book is an embarrassment to the publishing industry, and every professional involved should be ashamed of themselves. So yeah, I'm afraid that Lightlark wins my worst book of the year. So there you go. As my light is noticeably fading, looking accusatorially out the window because the sun has gone away completely and now it wants to snow. Anyway, feel free to let me know what your bests and worsts of the year were. If you have made a video of this, please let me know that too, because I want to watch it. I love watching people's, especially worst videos of the year, because I have a cold, dead heart and enjoy nothing. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget that you can check out my books, and hey, maybe one of them will be your best or your worst of 2023. Either way is fine, as long as you read it before you rate it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!